Hello guys, and welcome back to our second Spelevator 100% efficient build guide, which will get you prepped in time for update 3.0. So if you do like this series, then be sure to hit a thumbs up, and with us planning on having free dedicated servers for the channel when they're released, then do make sure to hit the subscribe button to keep up to date. But without further ado, our first build looks at the vanilla Spelevator Part 2, which is created using 2 stators and 5 cables. Now in this first build we will cover the vanilla recipe using stators, copper wire and cables. Now this build will allow us to create 3 Spelevator parts per minute using 3 assemblers, 4 constructors, a foundry, a single smelter and 2 power shards. So for the first build we're going to need to use a single smelter for copper and load balance, or split the copper ingots between 2 constructors, and this way the smelter will be able to run at 100% clock speed. Now after the smelter it is important to create a 1/3 to 2/3 split. Now for this we'll use a single splitter with a conveyor going off to the first constructor and then the other 2 conveyors merged together and going off to the second constructor. Now for more advanced load balances for your builds, do check out the video that I've already done. There'll be a link in the top right corner right now. But from here the first constructor will create copper wire at 34% underclock, going on to a second constructor creating cable at 100% clock speed. Now the second constructor that's connected to the smelter will also be manufacturing wire, but this time at 66% clock speed. Now this will then feed the assembler alongside the foundry that will smelt steel at 60% clock speed, connected to a constructor creating steel pipes at 120% overclock. Now this will connect to the assembler and create stators at 100% clock speed and then split the stators and the cables between the 2 final assemblers, creating the second Spelevator parts at 100% efficiency. Well, now we've got that first build out of the way, let's have a look at a manifold design, and that way you can build this without power shards. So for the first manifold, the first 2 constructors will be for copper wire being fed by copper ingots. The following 2 constructors will be fed by steel ingots, creating steel pipes, which will then feed into the assembler, creating stators. Now looking back at the copper wire constructor, the first one feeds into another constructor manufacturing cables, and the other wire constructor feeds straight into the stator assembler. Now the cables and the stators then follow into another manifold, feeding the items into 2 more assemblers to create the second Spelevator parts. Now, as you can see, this is another pretty easy system to set up, but if you wish to use alternative recipes, then I have 2 more builds for you to use. Now, the first alternative recipe setup uses the iron wire alternative recipe in place of the copper. Now, this allows us to remove the copper resource from our production so that we just use iron ore and coal. However, in order to reach 100% production without overproducing iron ingots, we will actually have to add a second smelter to the build, which will look like this. Now the first smelter will run iron ingots at 22% underclock, going on to manufacture iron wire at 44% underclock. Then cables at 100% clock speed, whilst the second smelter will run at 50% clock speed, going on to a constructor to create iron wire at 89% clock speed, then onto the assembler to create stators along with the steel pipes as with the initial build. And this again will allow us to build the Spelevator parts at 100% efficiency. Now the second alternative recipe is using the alternative stator recipe, using the quick wire recipe as well as the iron wire alt. Now this allows us to increase the production of the Spelevator parts by 50% whilst only increasing the assembler count by 1 and also using 1 extra power shard. Now in order to do this we will run the same setup with the first smelter creating iron ingots at 34% underclock, then with the constructor in front of it creating iron wire at 67% underclock, and then the second constructor creating the cables at 120% using the second power shard. Now the final smelter will be producing Caterium ingots at 100%, with quick wire being produced at 100% on the next constructor, and this will then feed into the assembler that's being fed also by the foundry that's creating steel ingots, which then follows into the same constructor as before, creating steel pipes at 120% overclock using the other power shard. Now this will allow us to create the alternative stator at 100%, meaning that we can produce Spelevator parts with 3 assemblers at 100% efficiency. So there you are guys, our second part to the new Spelevator builds. If you did enjoy the video then please drop a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe for more. Also don't forget to check out our Discord to find more like-minded gamers and talk about the upcoming releases. The link is below. Anyway guys, as always, thank you so much for watching. Ciao for now.